We'll just go back one step in the agenda because our deputant for TE 16.1 is here. Naming of a public laneway west of Simcoe Street extending south of Richmond Street. If the deputant could please come and join us. Hi there.
Hi there.
You can have a seat. You'll have 5 minutes and the clock is to my right.
The clock is here. Mr. Chairman and all the others gathered here today, thank you for indulging us.
Thank you very much. And please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Griffiths, and I am thrilled to be deputized for the first time ever. I'm here to support a petition to name the laneway just adjoining where the old Twilight Zone used to be from 1981 until 1989. Now, there probably are a lot of individuals in the room who may not know about the Twilight Zone or who may not be old enough or young enough. But to me, it was a very, very important place in terms of turning Toronto into a very cosmopolitan and, I guess, culturally rich city. It was the one place where, for the first time, you got all these I guess members of different ethnic and cultural groups were coming together under one roof and socializing, dancing mostly. But it became a bit of a, I don't know how to say it, became a bit of a, you had to be there every Saturday night. And most of the people who went there became like that. It's almost like a church or a temple or something like that. But more importantly, if you think about Queen Street West, and just speaking of Queen Street West around Spadina over to Bathurst, in those days, there was nothing going on. Along the strip that is now the so-called entertainment district, these are all former garment manufacturing buildings that were empty as the manufacturers were leaving the city. And there was nothing really going on. So Queen Street was cheap. Artists moved to Queen Street.
Yeah.
And there were all these abandoned buildings. So it was almost like, I guess, the perfect storm, because you had people who were coming from underrepresented communities and artists, also sort of slightly on the outside, coming in. And what you got was this amazing cultural stew. And I don't think Toronto, and in particular, there would be no Queen Street West, there would be no entertainment district. None of this would have really kicked off had the Twilight Zone not been there. So you had like all these, I say black kids, South Asian kids, Chinese or East Asian kids from the suburbs, basically coming together and meeting with and mingling with each other and with the artist community on Queen Street. And today, we look at it and we, I mean, I walk down Queen Street, it doesn't even look like, it's very commercial. It's not the Queen Street that it was when we first started seeing that happening, and artists are being forced to move further and further west or east along Queen Street to do their work. But for me, 9 years with no license, it was not a licensed facility. I can recall one fight in the entire 9 years that I was there. There was something about this place that was very conducive to people coming together and getting along. The 4 young men or 5 young men who started it were brothers from Trinidadian background family. Their entire family was involved in the running and management of the club. From their mother was the bookkeeper, doing the books. Their father was behind the bar serving patties and rotis and very sweet Caribbean drinks. And you just had a feeling that it was a safe space. You didn't have to worry about people, getting into arguments, because there was none of that sort of alcohol to fuel that. And when I think of it, and when I think of the Twilight Zone, I think very fondly of lots of memories of people and so many of the Torontonians that have gone out and made their name in the world, from designers and artists and even some politicians, I dare say, went through the Twilight Zone at some point. So it's not, you know, a 5-hectare development. It's not anything that's with that as much gravitas. But in terms of just putting another marker in Toronto, so that people who go by there will say, "Oh, what's this Twilight Lane?" or "What's this?" and they get to learn a little bit about the city and why the city is the way it is today. I think it's very important. I don't know. I think I've probably gone by my 5 minutes now, haven't I?
You're right at it. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the deputant? No? Thank you, sir. Are there any other deputants to speak to this item? Seeing none, Councillor Cressy.
And thank you. And first of all, I'll be moving the staff recommendations to rename this the Twilight Lane. Let me start off by saying that this was started in 1981. Those politicians you said who frequented there, it opened before I was born. So I was not one of those politicians who frequented. But I think it's worth, but I would have been, there you are. I think it's worth going back. This is in 1981, before in King Spadina, the clubs and the restaurants and now the condos arrived. This was in that in-between period between the Garment District and what is now the Entertainment District. It was before the regeneration phase in King Spadina. And in that in-between period, the Twilight Zone emerged. And this was, you just heard a bit from the deputant, it was a progressive and eclectic space. Right? We didn't talk as much around the music and the culture, but this was hip-hop, it was funk, it was soul. It was a space that reflected the new Toronto. But where it really reflected the new Toronto was who was there. That this was a diverse place where Torontonians, black and white, Southeast Asian and South Asian came together. It's a space where you were gay or straight, you came together. That in the early 80s, where Toronto was coming into its urban form, its cosmopolitan form, the Twilight Zone, as a safe and welcoming, and yes, a vibrant space with a lot of Queen Street designers there too, helped to solidify and reflect what Toronto eventually has come to be. And so as we become and are an urban city, I can't think of a more fitting tribute. Tweetable, fitting tribute. I'll go with that. Than to name this lane the Twilight name. And for the next generation of youths, myself included, as we walk by, there's a little piece of history that has left its mark in Toronto. And so I'm proud to move the recommendation, and I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Councillor Bailao, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Matlow, Councillor Perks, Councillor Fragedakis, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Mahevic, and Councillor Davis. Thank you very much. That motion carries.
Thank you very much. That was the most productive 5 minutes of my life.
The next item on our agenda is TE 16.5, Final Report, Broadview Avenue Planning Study, City-Initiated Official Plan Amendment, Urban Design Guidelines, and Heritage Inventory. Still on the 10 o'clock items. The first speaker is Chris Williams. Chris.